Behind the Shades.
Did you ever think that your work would come this far, where outside of your family, you're helping impact generations of people that you are helping raise in a way?
Oh, never, never, ever in a million years. Um, People would ask me what I did as a young mom, and I would say I'm just a stay-at-home mom. And now I'm a coach, speaker, and trainer, and I have the opportunity to go into to a home for addicts and speak and train there, and I get to work with people online from around the world in different places, and it is just incredible. I never in a million years would I have guessed that this was possible. And honestly, I have to give credit to God because He has done a tremendous work in my life that I didn't know was possible either. And this wouldn't be possible without Him. And so I do need to give credit to my maker too, because of the way He's made me to be. My number one strength in Strength Finders is positivity. And my number five is empathy. And even just learning how I've been made and created, and learning when is a good time to have that positivity show up and when is a good time to dial it back and bring up the empathy. It's been just powerful to understand better. I didn't learn this in school. I did not learn that positivity was a good thing and how to use it. And it wasn't until I was able to take Strength Finders and learn this is how I'm made, and this is how I can apply it now to my life and to impact the people that I'm currently working with and may work with in the future.
And I always say God is good all the time. So that's amazing that you said that. You mentioned you're working with addicts. What type of work do you do with them currently?
Yeah, so I am privileged to go in once a week to a home for addictions. It's called Lennon House in our local area here. And I bring three programs continually. Right now, we're doing the 15 Invaluable Laws of Growth. That's John Maxwell's work, my mentor. And this week we did the law of environment. Now you can imagine, Terrain, how important that is for them. And so I want to hear from them as much as teach them. So I give them some teaching, but I want to hear from them. How does this law of environment impact you? And who is that person that's in your life right now that you know that when you go home, they're going to sabotage your sobriety? Because these people have been there maybe for 6 weeks, perhaps for a month, perhaps for 6 months. They're allowed to be there for up to a year. So I have a whole year, once a week, to go in and impact them with positive laws that if they implement into their lives, I tell them it will change your life because it has changed mine. And I know that this is the internal work that they need to do so that they can maintain their sobriety. Sobriety is a one thing, like not to be drinking, not to be gambling, not to be using drugs. That's one thing. But once they thaw out, all the emotions come to the surface and all that old stuff that you talked about comes to the surface. And the work that I do with them is helping them to go within to move forward in their sobriety. The second program I bring to them is how to avoid falling for a jerk. Relationships are so important to them. And they need to identify who are those people in their lives that are bringing them down, but they need to identify who are those people that support their sobriety, because those are the people they need to continue to nurture in their lives. And sometimes it's a little bit dicey. We don't like people telling us what to do. We don't like people being hard on us, but sometimes we need that balance of grace and truth, right? They need that balance. We all do, of grace and truth. And so they need to identify who are those jerks. And this program helps them understand attachment theory and how we bond with healthy people, how love grows. They need to know that too. And then the third program that I bring is a program we wrote. I work with my daughter, Hannah, and it's a program that we wrote called Be Curious, Not Furious. And there's a lot of drama in their lives, a lot of being angry helps them to bring down the drama, to bring down the angry, help them identify triggers. and then help them to communicate in a way that aligns with their values. They're very kind people as well. And so those are the three programs. I continue to bring them in on a continuing basis. And I am privileged to work with the director there, Diane Young, and to work with the addicts, who are just beautiful people, who I say to them, you know, I want to be here next year in August of 2023, but I don't want to see you here. And because they have gifts and talents and strengths and abilities that I don't have, that our community needs and that their families need. And I want to see them reunited with their families and back in our community and contributing to our community.
The type of conversations you would have when you offer those types of programs to them, especially the second one, how to identify a jerk, is that different than a conversation you would have with someone who is maybe not in that current situation?
Absolutely. So toxic people are very different than difficult people. We can all be difficult some of the time. I know I can be difficult some of the time, but I'm not toxic. So those toxic people, I say that they're people they're soul sucking. They are demeaning, they're critical, they control, whether it's your money, they're manipulating. There's a lot of spiritual control in some places. And so that's like toxic. Whereas difficult people, there can be, for us, there were external pressures on our relationship that were causing us to be difficult. He was working a lot and we didn't have the skills, and we had little ones at home, and we didn't have time to talk. And so it made us difficult because we didn't have the skills in order to talk about what was happening and to conflict in healthy ways. And so those are very different conversations that we would have if someone's dealing with a toxic, destructive type person as opposed to a difficult person.
Can a difficult person become toxic?
Oh, I'm glad you asked that question. Absolutely. I do believe that's true. And for instance, if we had chosen to keep doing what we were doing, I think we would have become more and more toxic, more and more difficult into moving into toxic, where we would have, we were already very critical with one another. I was very critical with my husband. And if I had have continued down that path, yes, I could have become toxic. And I think it's important. That's why early intervention is important. And that's why I think that the tune-up and the checkup and the personal growth is really important, to stay in touch with what's happening inside and to be aware of what's going on inside so that we don't become those toxic people we don't want to be. No one wants to be destructive or toxic.
So, when you mention early intervention, does that at least begin with within? Or is it something that someone has to tell us, say, hey, what you're doing, I don't like. Can we have a conversation?
Absolutely, both ways. So it can be, I have been sitting in the coaching chair where a woman will say, oh, and she'll say the most amazing things about what is happening inside of her and why she was behaving the way she was behaving. And her husband wasn't being great either. But that new awareness, knowing what she was thinking and how she was feeling, helped her move forward in such a better way. And so I think it's both. We can, and I think that's why those pivotal conversations are so important, because when I say to you, hey, you know, I'm feeling very disrespected now, like the way you just talked to me, I don't even feel like I matter, or I feel like I'm disgusting to you by the way you look at me. That's a pivotal conversation, right? True story. And come to find out that that's pain from the past that had to be worked through. But if I had not had that pivotal conversation with my husband, then we would not be in the place that we are today. And that's that vulnerability piece that can be so hard to be honest. Like the way you're looking at me right now, I don't feel like you even like me, or like you even want me. And, you know, out of that conversation came, he said, I don't know what you see because I can't see it. You know, this is what came about in that pivotal conversation. He gives me permission to share the strain. He said to me, I need you to tell me when you see me look at you that way, because I don't know what I'm doing. And then can we have a conversation about it?
That's beautiful,
That's,
because that's how you bring the awareness, right? So continue, please.
yes. Yeah. And so out of that came multiple pivotal conversations where I said, what are you thinking? What are you feeling? What's going on here when you look at me that way? And eventually we were able to get to some of his struggles in emotional abandonment. And that never would have happened without those pivotal conversations, without that vulnerability. And I do believe that we would have continued down that toxic road if we had not had some intervention, where we in some ways we did it ourselves, and in a lot of ways we had a whole lot of help along the way, where we needed some intervention to help us. And our kids, as they grew up, they became more of a mirror for us and saying, hey mom, that's not like what you just said there, that's not okay. Hey dad, what are you looking at me like that for? I don't understand what this is or what's going on here. And so as our kids get older, they can also be that mirror and help to bring new awareness as to what's going on in our hearts and our minds and our lives and our marriages and our family life.